Hi, I'm Janet Gross. Welcome to Coping Today, a place where we talk about mental health and well-being. Of course, we all have challenges and opportunities. Sometimes, often those are the same things, but we all face a lot of different emotions and experiences in life. Dr. Roy Salgado, professor of counseling at the University of Holy Cross, joins us on this journey, helping us figure things out and talking things out.
Yes, we all have things with which to contend. You know, we all experience anger, anxiety, depression, trauma, relationships. There's so many things that we face, and so figuring out how to cope with those things is very important. And oftentimes, as counselors, as mental health professionals, people come into our office either remotely or in person so we can help them cope, and they acquire the skills to be able to do that effectively and efficiently. And for some people, it's more of a challenge than others. And when they come in, it's usually to intervene when something has happened. It's important to know that oftentimes well-being and mental health instances, distress, if you will, can be mitigated on the front end if we prevent things, if we engage in preventative measures. And today we're going to talk about that. Preventative versus interventative measures. As in physical health, in mental health, to do certain things and engage in certain behaviors, if you will, and practices on the front end can help mitigate physical ailments. So, you know, diabetes, for example. In order to prevent diabetes, you want to move, exercise, drink water, eat well, let food be thy medicine in those instances. Right. So that you don't have to take a prescribed medication as an intervention once a disease has come into play. Similarly, for mental health issues, we can do some preventative things on the front end so as to not have a mental health condition or a disease that appears in the DSM-5, Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, 5th edition.
What? Don't go there, Roy.
Right? So when we have that type of condition present itself, that we're not intervening with people who are suffering with depression or suffering with anxiety or suffering with whatever it may be. We can mitigate that on the front end. And so prevention is key, and we're going to talk about that.
Is that kind of like promotion of mental health, or is prevention and
it is promotion. When you're aware of something, when you promote general well-being and mental health, you are helping people become aware that it is a vital part of who we are. Our mental well-being and being in a good space is important. So for example, you know, when you're on a plane and you have them prepare for, you know, a potential emergency situation, they say put on your mask and don't panic so you can go and help others. It's important to be able to have the tools and techniques on the front end, so when life presents itself with its challenging situations, and it undoubtedly will, life just has a way of doing that, things will come our way, grief, loss, what have you. Those who are prepared on the front end don't panic. Those who are prepared on the front end are able to respond in a way where they find solutions to life circumstances as opposed to being overcome and overwhelmed by them. And so when people acquire the skills to cope, they're able to mitigate an onset of a diagnosis of anxiety or depression, things that could perhaps be crippling for some people. And so prevention is an important part of one's overall well-being.
Is it almost like practicing for good health? I mean, yes. Mental health, you know?
Yes, practicing. And so engaging in habits and behaviors on the front end. So some of the basic things that we could do for ourselves is exercise, eat well.
Man, so many benefits other than just mental health.
Drink water, right. Yeah. So you have both the benefits of physical health and mental health. and maintaining good relationships, you know, being kind to one another, you know, go figure, right? When you're in good relationship with people and you have a social support network, when things happen, when life circumstances just happen the way that they tend to do, if you have a support system and you haven't burnt bridges and you have relationships, people that you can count on, it's easier to get through circumstances when you have friends, family members on which to rely. Mm-hmm. And so learning how to be able to do that. A lot of the times people come into a situation to resolve conflicts. They have a challenge with being able to do that, you know, and so conflict resolution, anger management are some of the things that present themselves quite frequently in our offices. And so to help children and adults acquire the skills to be able to resolve conflict and to perhaps, you know, be able to control or manage their anger, it can get them a long way to acquire those skills, because unfortunately some people in certain circumstances just never acquire those skills. Mm-hmm. And so on the front end to help people, offer them the opportunity to acquire those skills, and it saves them a lot of grief in the long run. And it prevents them from coming in after a life of heartache, if you will, or a season of heartache, and then having to intervene accordingly.
Right, because these are things that can be learned.
Yes.
Or appropriated, something that you can do, and it might not take, years to do it. Just a little bit of help, a little bit of encouragement, or guidance.
Yeah.
You can.
We live in a world where we have so much distress going on. We see people that just don't get along with one another, crime on the rise, families are not getting along, and all of these things are happening because they're not supporting one another, and they're not engaging in proactive promoting general welfare and well-being and good mental health. And so to be able to get on the front end and be able to just offer people the opportunity, to get together and have a meal together, play together, just do things to enjoy each other's company, and perhaps to spend some quiet time. We don't spend quiet time anymore. We're on these devices, whether it's a tablet or a cell phone or a computer. Technology has just kept us away from being able to center ourselves and just be able to be silent, just be and pray or meditate, to offer people opportunities to go back to certain fundamentals that can offer overall well-being. Or
even, and I think this is important, the ability to be silent in the company of someone else, just being together.
Yes.
When somebody pulls out, we're just sitting there having a conversation and there's a little lull and somebody pulls out their phone, I'm like, dang.
Right. We just do that way too often. When we're in each other's company and we're sitting around a table, how many times are we seeing now people sitting around a table, not engaging with one another, but engaging with people that are all over the world?
Who else is in the room with me now?
Right.
Right. And where are they from?
Exactly. And then, and has that made things any better for us? We're more anxious than we've ever been. We feel more isolated and disconnected than we ever have. And all of these things are contributing to a well-being that is not satisfactory. And so preventing that in the first place by just being able to do certain things like putting devices aside or connecting with the person that's in front of you in the moment and getting good sleep, all these different things to help set the stage for problem solving and feeling well overall is important.
And I think as a friend or as a person who cares about someone, you want to do that too. You don't want that person to feel like they're not as important or they're not engaging or entertaining enough or whatever enough.
Right, because what you're sending a message saying that there's someone else somewhere else that's more important, more interesting, more deserving of my time, energy, and effort than you who are in front of me. And what does that say to that person? And what are you communicating? And do we want to necessarily do that? Right,
and it's not that you're just being offended that somebody is not looking at you. It's you've been taken out of the equation.
Right.
That's interesting. So as we learn these things and we put them into practice, is it ever too late to start something? To start saying, you know what, I got to be better at this. I need help with this.
As a counselor, it's never too late. I'm in the business of helping people to be able to make changes, requisite or necessary changes for the betterment of their life, whether they are 2 years old or 102 years old. At any point, it's always beneficial to learn new things, acquire new skills to make your life that much more pleasant and healthy. Now, it is more challenging once you've established certain habits and you've engaged in a behavior for years and years and years. It's more difficult to break established habits, but not impossible. And if it were impossible, I would not be in this line of business. And so because I know that it is possible, I see it every day. People's lives are transformed by being able to acquire these skills. It is certainly something that I encourage anyone who needs to acquire the skills to mitigate, prevent, and intervene as well, that they do so.
Okay. All right, we're going to talk more about that in just a minute. When we come back, we'll talk with an expert on getting the message across of educating, helping our community, and being, just well-being. So stay with us.
Thanks for buying a fishing license. I want you to picture all of the great things this simple purchase does, like building public boat ramps, keeping local waters clean, and maintaining a healthy fish population. When you buy a fishing license, you do a lot. Every dollar protects and maintains your local waterways for future generations to enjoy. Learn more at takemefishing.org/Louisiana.
Welcome back. We're talking about reaching out for help and helping those who reach out. Certainly our guest, Dr. Stant Mcneely, the president of the University of Holy Cross, can speak to this. Dr. Mcneely, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jan. It's great to be with you.
You know, of course, the university does amazing things and has been for years, reaching students, the community, nearby and at large, and in education in so many other ways. You guys, it's part of the mission, right, to reach out and help.
Absolutely, Jan. The University of Holy Cross was founded over a century ago by the Maronite sisters, the Maronites of Holy Cross, religious women who were called and are called to this day to be a prophetic presence in an ever-changing world. It started by meeting the need in our community for teachers in our elementary and high schools, and throughout our century, we have broadened that reach a lot in compassionate service and caring professions, including in healthcare with nursing and health sciences and other programs, and also, of course, subject to this show with Coping Today with mental health counseling, an excellent program at the University of Holy Cross.
You know, as you give like that, what good does that do to your students or for your students? And what do you hope to, what message are you sending? What do you hope to do in the community? Service is great. Is there a bigger message there? Is there an example? What do you think?
Absolutely a bigger message. Thank you for asking that question right there, Jan, because for the University of Holy Cross, true to our mission, education is not a transaction to pay for a class, get 3 credit hours, get a piece of paper. It's to help develop a whole person. The heart and mind is core to the education in the Holy Cross tradition. And that experience for a student is to make them a learner, a graduate, a citizen who extends that heart and mind formation to others in our world. And this is important because in our world, we're highly divisive. We're increasingly, sadly, not caring for one another in the true sense of respecting each person. And as part of mental health and wellness, as part of education and formation of students in a way that makes them better citizens, better persons in our world, and for their family members and communities, that's essential. That what they experience at the University of Holy Cross and extend to others as they go into their professions and beyond graduation to their lives is something that is transformational for others, so we have a better society.
You know, and to that end, you know, when I work with students, whether they're students who are in mental health counseling or in education or nursing or in business, whatever discipline that they choose, they graduate having their heart and mind formed from the University of Holy Cross and the Maronite mission. Then they go out into the world, whether they are in a classroom or in a bank or in a hospital or in a clinic, whatever setting they're in, then that gets transmitted out. And those interactions with other people, those positive interactions, are preventative in nature in terms of when you have a person in the community having a good interaction with a person who has graduated from the University of Holy Cross, whose heart and mind has been formed by that mission. Now you're creating an interaction between two individuals or among individuals that's a pleasant one, a healthy one, a good one within community, within society. And not having to intervene in some clinical way, because people are knowing how to interact in cordial, collegial ways with one another. You know, we oftentimes in counseling intervene because these transactions are broken, these relationships are broken. You know, how many times do we hear of people going out in society and then things just going awry? But when you have people whose hearts and minds are formed, that helps prevent this distress and these divisions that take place in our world.
It's almost like seeds are planted and spread.
Yes.
So you see flowers all over in different places that are beautiful to look at it and examples in life. And that's a great thing. I mean, I want to be one of those people.
Right.
You know, who doesn't want to be one of the people who, you know, encourage and counsel, I guess, being friends, that kind of thing.
And everything we do teaches, whether we are a teller at a bank or a nurse in a hospital or a teacher in a classroom or a counselor in a counseling center. Everything we do teaches, and those interactions offer those opportunities for people to feel good and and cared for and interact with
And
one another.
valued.
And valued.
You know, Dr. Mcneely, I know that the university has done things other than, way outside of education. Disaster relief, I mean, we talked about that before. Certainly, the mental health help that is done free and has been since COVID started, and that's continuing at least right now. I mean, it's just you reach out in different ways that are not necessarily your the usual education government or franchise.
Absolutely, Jan. And listening to Dr. Salgado, Roy brings up an excellent set of points. One of the things that is an example, as I'm a business graduate, my baccalaureate degree is in accounting from the University of Holy Cross. And one of the things we do, true to heart and mind, is our students in business provide tax preparation assistance to the indigent throughout the spring, leading up to April 15th. And so that those citizens have that assistance, they can get that assistance from our accounting students. And in the process, these business students learn the importance of the other person they're assisting with that business service, that accounting service. And like you said, Jan, that extends to other ways as well. We had, of course, the devastation of Hurricane Ida, and it's important for our students as well as for the larger community to have the resources to be able to continue with their lives. And so it's not just to continue their enrollment and all of the practical matters, of course that's essential, but for them to achieve their dreams in terms of their formation and progress in their lives and for their families during a time of great crisis with the storm, as they are repairing roofs and dealing with the tragedy of maybe the loss of a job because of a business being impacted where they worked as they went through school. So of course we worked out and got donations from our friends and supporters and alumni for hurricane emergency assistance. We actually used that at the beginning of the pandemic too to help our students. It was a lesson we learned from Hurricane Katrina, that we are able to adapt and help and provide the needs and meet the needs to help students continue with their education. And likewise, the mental health counseling services. We have an excellence in that program, have been doing it for decades, and it wasn't where we're gonna let the disasters stop us, but actually the opposite. And that's true to the Marionite Sisters and their leadership and sponsorship of this university, because when they came to New Orleans, they dealt with yellow fever, they dealt with pandemics and hurricanes in other ways, and variety of issues with poverty and civil war. And yet, they continue to extend their mission. And now in the 21st century, through this broadcast, through the extension of our mental health counseling services and the expertise and excellence that our faculty and students in counseling share with the broader community, our reach now is extended to many more people. And that continues not just at this moment, but for years to come, because it's the new normal and it's the new way we live our mission and heart and mind outreach.
It really does. It is. The doing good feels good and helps your mental health.
It does, and when life happens, as we had mentioned earlier, because life is going to happen, we're going to experience natural disasters, we're going to experience hardship, to know that you're part of a community that cares for you and supports you, that it's not just a professor and a student, or an administrator and a student, or what have you, that it's two human beings and we're there for one another, and that we reach and we meet each other where we are. And to the extent that we can offer what it is that we can offer, we do so. That helps prevent and mitigate additional stress. Imagine a situation where a person is experiencing having lost their home due to a natural disaster, an act of God, nothing that anyone could have necessarily had prevented. And then they still have to contend with all of the other things. And then, oh, no, that paper is late, or whatever, too bad, so sad. What is that going to do to that person? It's just going to compound the already stressful situation with which they're having to contend. And maybe they're in debt and they don't earn a course credit. But you meet someone as a human being, as an individual, and then you work with them within reason, then you're helping to prevent something that's compounded down the line. If you can be helpful to that end, we at the University of Holy Cross do that. And it's a wonderful place to be, and we're hoping to be able to pass that on to students, that they in turn can pay it forward, if you will, and be preventative in nature for others' well-being, so that people can just, in their kindness and in their compassion, just help one another have a good, happy, joyful experience.
Sounds like, Dr. Mcneely, you can speak to this too. Coming alongside someone in their need and helping, it's so important just to be there. No matter, well, it does matter what you do, but I mean, to be there to do things.
Absolutely, Jan. And that's the key, is to be intentionally present with a person or persons and a group, even our larger community. That's essential, especially when they're stressed, especially when they're going through trying times, but even in their normal life journey. One of the things we often discover with our students, and I know Roy can share this from his own experiences with students, is that even in more stable conditions, students discover abilities within themselves that they may not have otherwise realized because we're by their side. And we help lift them up to a better place that they may not have actualized independently. And that's where we come together as a community, as assisting one another, being the presence intentionally with each person, in our case with our students, but also with the larger community, as we do through this program and with mental health counseling services to the larger society. That's the way to help transform and lift someone's heart when they're in distress, or even when they're looking at a normal life condition, that they discover that they have abilities within themselves to do exactly what Roy mentioned, to then pay it forward to help others who are perhaps experiencing greater challenges.
Right. I love the use of the word intentionality. That's so important. Dr. Mcneely, thank you so much for joining us and for walking and talking this through with us. We'll be back in a moment. Stay with us.
Louisiana needs a hero.
Someone to look after it, preserve it.
We have to do something now.
If everybody took care of their spot, we wouldn't have this conversation.
We all have to do our part.
The power is yours. All you have to do is pick it up.
Care about it. Protect it. Save it.
Be an everyday hero.
Keep Louisiana beautiful.
And we're back talking about prevention and intervention in mental health. Although we'd all likely vote for the prevention part, we need both.
Yes, and we do intervention on a regular basis. People oftentimes reach out to us for services when they have exhausted their own resources in terms of how to approach situations, and they haven't been successful, if you will, in being able to mitigate their symptoms of anxiety or depression or negotiate relationship and conflict thereof. So they come to us, and we offer them the skills to be able to cope and give them some new insight in being able to approach things differently. Perhaps they have been doing the same thing over and over again and yielding no results. And so we come for an intervention, and we implement a treatment plan, and there is a successful outcome. That's after some time of perhaps distress and suffering, of weeks and months and not being able to resolve it. But if you can avoid, if you can try to, get away with not having to go through that, and on the preventative side, being able to do some preventative measures, that's an important thing too. So for example, I often tell parents, when I work with parents and children and do family counseling, you're gonna wanna nip this in the bud now that they're 3. Otherwise, you'll be dealing with this at 16.
Oh, yeah.
And to deal with a 3-year-old having a tantrum by disciplining him accordingly now is going to serve you in the long run, because you will eventually have to intervene. You can be preventative in nature right now at 3 and do things like play with them and eat with them and pray with them and spend time with them. Do that on the front end and continue throughout, because if you don't, on the back end, you're going to have to discipline when they're 16, and it's a lot harder to discipline a 16-year-old who has a 16-year-old type of tantrum, if you will, than a 3-year-old.
Right.
And so do it on the front end. It's important to do it on the front end, whether it's disciplining and raising children or with yourself in terms of being able to navigate your own anxiety and distress and depression, to be able to acquire the skills on the front end as opposed to suffering and dealing with it on the back end. So intervention, when it happens, when necessary, we do that, but we also want to encourage people to, on the front end, be preventative in nature.
And I guess everything doesn't have to, like an intervention, has a connotation to it that's a little,
Yeah.
more involved and more, but it doesn't have to mean crisis.
It doesn't have to mean crisis.
It's just let's get in here and fix this now.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So if you have a person who comes in with symptoms of anxiety, anxiety can be anywhere from mild to moderate to severe or extreme. Anxiety has a wide continuum. So you could have a person who experiences some mild symptoms, and so we want to intervene before it gets into some sort of panic situation, because anxiety can lead to a very debilitating way of experiencing the world, where you don't even want to leave your home, and you can develop agoraphobia, or you have panic disorder, and things trigger you to the extent that you can't function, and your daily life is impacted in significant ways. Or you can have those butterflies in your stomach, and then just those racing thoughts and things that just make things a little more challenging. You want to intervene, and it doesn't have to be a crisis situation, but you want to intervene earlier on so as to mitigate and prevent it from getting too out of control, and then you have other areas of your life being impacted.
So easier to deal, obviously easier to deal with at that point too. Like you can take some steps, oh wait, I can learn from this.
Absolutely. Just like diabetes, for example, just like in physical health. If you have someone who's pre-diabetic and say, here we have the markers of pre-diabetes, and we want to cut back on ice cream and cookies and soda and things of that nature, because if we wait, you might have to have insulin or medication, or maybe even have to amputate a limb as a form of intervention because it's been unchecked. We want to get on the front end of things. Not to say that when things do get a little advanced in progression that we can't intervene. We certainly can, but do we want to necessarily do that?
To wait that long?
Do we want to wait that long? If that's when you come in to seek a service, okay, then that's when we'll meet you where you are. But it's important to know when things are presenting themselves early on, so we can go ahead and tackle it as soon as we can.
So I guess there is a responsibility to kind of think, I can do this,
yes,
and I can make this step, and I can change this by either doing this or seeing somebody and talking about it.
Right, and that self-awareness of a person being mindful, what, I don't like what I'm feeling right now. I realize that I'm engaging in a behavior that's not in my best interest. I don't like these thoughts that I'm having. Let me get help. Let me do it now, because I need it. And I need an outside person, a professional, to help intervene and help me come up with a solution to what I'm experiencing.
And you know a lot, Dr. Ryan. But there are a lot of techniques that people can use that they might not be aware
yes,
of that could just go, oh.
Yes, and mental health professionals are trained. They have a master's degree and or a doctorate in different evidence-based practices that really help individuals be able to establish healthy well-being. And if you can't do it on your own, if there are things that have prevented you from being able to do that, a well-trained mental health professional can be the person to offer that to you.
And I guess if you are looking for someone to do that, there are plenty of resources out there. But for right now, the University of Holy Cross, we talked about it briefly when Dr. Mcneely was on, but there's some free help that you could reach out to right now.
The Maronites of Holy Cross have set up this opportunity for residents of Louisiana to receive free telemental health counseling here at the University of Holy Cross. So all you have to do is call the number on the screen, and the administrative assistant will take that call, triage it to the clinical director, and then you'll have a counselor in training assigned to you to be able to meet you where you are with your presenting issue and help intervene with whatever it is that may be ailing you.
Okay, and it doesn't have to be a lifelong thing. I mean, it's going to be, you could work this out.
Yes,
yeah.
And counseling is not meant to be lifelong.
Right.
It's not psychoanalysis. It is something that has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and there's hope.
Okay. Any tips before we go?
Yes. Again, on the prevention side, it's important to be able to eat together as families, play together, pray together. Your kids will love it, and with that, it'll mitigate a number of potential issues down the road.
And your kids will feel loved while it's happening. I mean,
they will love it, they will feel loved, they will love you, and they will love others in return, and then we'll have a lot of things resolve themselves as a result.
Okay, great. Well, thank you, Dr. Roy Salgado, for talking things through. And of course, Dr. Stant Mcneely, the president of the University of Holy Cross, for joining us. And thank you for watching and being a part of Coping Today.